Hi, everybody. Welcome again to another podcast of Byte Ventures. This time we have Gaurav from Hubspot. He is a staff engineer at Hubspot and has been doing some amazing work. We'll get to know about his amazing work, his writing journey, and all stuff. So, Gaurav, welcome to the podcast. And why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Hitesh, for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm excited about this conversation, and I must say that you're doing great with this channel. I saw a couple of other podcasts that you did with other great leaders in general, and so I'm glad to be here. So yeah, a little bit about me. I'm Gaurav. I have 10 plus years of experience in tech. Um, I started with a small consulting firm in India, and then I jumped different companies. I grew throughout my career. Um, Currently, I'm working as a staff software engineer at HubSpot, and I'm part of the data infrastructure organization. Um, Throughout my journey, I learned a lot of lessons in terms of how to progress in the career, how to become a leader that you kind of like always wanted in your own life. So with that, I thought, okay, how can I share my journey? Because I was getting a lot of DMs in my LinkedIn profiles and everything that, hey, can you help me in that? And I thought, how can I scale myself? And that's where I started writing my newsletter. It's called the Curious Soul Corner.
Right.
My aim is to help others grow and become a balanced human at life, and that's where I write my newsletter. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn as well, so feel free to connect. But yeah, and thanks for having me again.
Yeah, of course. I'll mention all of your handles. But before that, the one interesting thing that struck out and the whole reason I reached out to you in the first place was a couple of your articles. The most important one was the $1 million mistake or the $1 million staff engineer struggles, right? As you have quoted in your article. And the second was what are the 41 useless thing you did? Like what are the 41 different lessons? So let's go with that. And why don't you elaborate a little bit on that topic?
Sure. That $1 million staff engineer, that's like a bit of a cheesy title that Ravi Raj. So that was a collaboration with Ravi Raj, and I'm thankful to him. For having me on his newsletter. So this was so basically we were having conversations, and he nudged me and he said, "Hey, Gaurav, are there any struggles throughout your career that we want to share?" And I was like, that made me think of my whole journey. What happens is like when you reach somewhere, you forget about your past pretty quickly, and you try to just look for the future. So when Raviraj asked me, and I was like, "That's a great point," and I started reflecting on my journey, on my career, on my struggles, coming from a lower middle class family in India. I saw a lot of financial struggles, and then even getting to a college was difficult. I lost my father when I was 17. So that was a bit of a ride. I started. I did my graduation in electronics and communication from a very small college, and then jumped to computer engineering. I was not a computer engineering expert, but I was good at coding. I was doing embedded systems. Um, so then started with a very small consulting firm, and then moved companies. At some point, there was a lot of debt that I had to pay. So kind of like I started a side hustle of delivering food boxes, but not in Bangalore, and then
Oh,
struggled there as well. And then I jumped to Amazon after doing a lot of practice of interviewing, and I landed there, and that changed my life. And then it was all upside from there. And so, in that newsletter article, which is a collaboration with Ravi Raj, I've shared all my lessons, all my struggles, and it went viral. Like everyone enjoyed it, and they reached out to me, they congratulated me, and so yeah, it was great. Uh, so yeah, go check out if you want to read that. You mentioned about the other one, which is 41 learnings of my life. I choose that title as the most useless article that you would read is because if you read through this through that article, it's like most of the times you would know those things already, or you
it's
may have
common sense.
heard
Yeah.
it. yeah, you would have known those things pretty well. You have if you're especially you know a avid reader or a learner, you know, you're curious about things. You will know these things already. But what happens is we tend to forget, and that was a reflection of my whole career and life, and that's how I kind of like did a conjecture of all my life learnings, and those are like short liners about what it takes to be say a good software engineer. But then you have to you have your life as well. You're not just a software engineer, you're a balanced human being. You have to manage money, you have to be a parent, you have to do a lot of things. So whatever I learned from my life, I use those as my guiding principles as well. And so I listed those down in that article. It's pretty good that people are able to resonate with that, especially like some of the life learnings that I had, like how to just keep on going, not stopping anywhere. That's like consistency is always the best thing to do. So yeah, those are a couple of my newsletter articles. I'm glad that you got a chance to read through those, and
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. So yeah, definitely. When I was reading your struggles, it was really hard, and coming you see all those, and then landing all of your things like becoming a staff engineer, working at Amazon, moving to US, and all stuff. Huge congratulations to that. I
Thank you.
definitely have respect for you, yeah, because I was like, okay, he has seen a lot of struggles, and he has gone to the highest level as well of his career. So huge congratulations again. So
Thank you.
let's talk about your journey. So how did you started? You said you started with the consultancy and then moved to Amazon, and that changed your life. So let's talk about your journey from that consulting to Amazon and eventually to HubSpot.
Sure. As I said, I started like after graduating. I was very passionate about like embedded system because I was in electronics and communication. It's a combination of hardware and software, and so you write code as well. And that's where my interest went more on coding and computer science side, even though I spent like 4 years doing electronics and communication. And so people were like, oh, this is the same guy who wanted to do like, who was very passionate about embedded systems. I built like robotics projects during my graduation. And so people were like, oh, this guy made a jump, something's wrong. And I was like, I'm just going with my passion. So yeah, I started with a very small consulting firm. It's called Tata Consultancy Service, or TCS in India. And I spent like 6 months there just, and figured out that that's not the place for me, and I need to go somewhere else. It's a good company. It's a pretty good company for growth, but it was not aligning with my passion and everything. And so there was actually a fun part there. These companies, they sign, like, you have to, when you onboard to those companies, especially as a graduate, you have to sign a contract that if you leave before 2 years, you have to pay some money. So I ended up
Okay.
paying that money, more money I paid than I earned, and because I left in 6 months. And then I moved to Bangalore, where I joined a product-based company called Manhattan Associate. I again spent like 1.5 year types there. And then I found that, okay, it's good. I got a taste of how product and business work, but I was having some financial struggles, and you know, I wanted to kind of see where I can go. What's my limit? What can I target? And then somewhere I was reading, okay, companies like Amazon, they pay like 4 or 5 times of other companies in India, like these fan companies. And I was like, is it really possible? Like, how can someone, like, at that time, I remember like it was 18 lakh rupees annually in like 2015, 2016. And that was a lot of money for me. And I was like, is that possible? And I said, okay, if that is possible and people are doing it, that will change my financial, journey altogether. I will be able to pay all my debts and everything. And so I started preparing for interviews, including, coding and system design. And I was lucky there was no lead code at that time. There was a website called Geeks for Geeks. You just do like 100 known questions, and you can crack it. I'm not saying it was easy to crack, because those 100 questions were also very different than what you do in your typical day-to-day life. But I prepared for Amazon, and luckily, by God's grace, I landed a job at Amazon India. And then I started working on some interesting project. I was part of the payments team in India, and we launched some pretty interesting projects. Like even if you go to Amazon today and you get some instant discount on something, using some credit card, or you buy something on EMIs. EMIs stand for like no cost every month installment.
Hmm.
That's powered by what I and my team implemented, and so I'm very proud
Oh,
of that.
cool.
And then I
Great to hear.
joined. Then Amazon sponsored my visa, and I moved to US in 2019. And that was also very upside. And I joined AWS, and I started working on deep tech systems, distributed systems, solving very complex problems. So it was quite a journey. It was a lot of learning, not just technically, but also how you evolve as a leader, how you become mentor, and then how you start contributing to bigger businesses. So by that time, I spent like 6 years at Amazon, and I was like, okay, I know this stuff. I wanna grow more. I wanna learn about what's happening in the industry. And by that time, I was also already operating as a senior engineer, which is in line with staff engineers across different companies. There is a bleak line there. So levels.fy will tell you like that there is no staff level in Amazon. It's like the
Yeah.
senior band is pretty high, and then you have directly principal engineer.
Yes.
So that's where I made a jump to Coinbase. And between that, there was a lot of immigration struggles as well, which we can talk separately. But that's also an interesting thing. But then I joined Coinbase as staff engineer, and there also I started contributing. It was quite a journey, because going from a big tech to Coinbase. Coinbase is a mid-tier company. It's still growing so super fast. It was a different experience. Like you can choose your own battles. Uh, you can make impact very fast, and teams. It still operates at a startup scale, and so you can basically ship features really really fast compared to Amazon, because Amazon has scale and it has processes that takes time for you to deliver stuff. And so at Coinbase, I was like, wow, this is how things are done outside of big tech. And I would be honest, I have to unlearn a lot of things before I could learn there. The most important thing that I have to unlearn is like asking for permissions. Like even at senior staff level at Amazon, once you are doing something, you have to create design document, get a lot of consensus. So when I moved to Coinbase, and in general like mid-tier companies, I learned that you move from consensus model to consent model. You just go to the public and to your stakeholder and say, this is what I'm going to do. Is there any concern? Rather than, hey, can I do this? Do I have your approval to do that? And so at Coinbase as well, I was able to land impact pretty well. There was a cost saving initiative going on. I was able to save like millions of dollars for the company by reducing the infrastructure cost. I spent like a short tenure of 1 year there, and then parted ways with Coinbase. And then I joined a startup, which was fun, because at the same time I had my baby. So definitely it was a wrong move, because a startup is like whole different thing. There is you have to be everything. You have to be a software engineer, you have to be a program manager. In one meeting, you're talking to potential clients, in another meeting, you're talking to potential investors, then you're designing your website, you're designing your APIs. And I was like, that was a lot of work. It was a great, great, great learning. And the founders were really helpful, really supportive. But I was not giving my 100%, because I have to manage my baby, I have to take care of my baby in my personal life, and I was not able to give that much time, and I was not doing justice to the startup. And so the founders and we come to mutual conclusion that, hey, this is probably not the right time, and we may think back later on sometime in life. And that's where I joined Hubspot. That's the current company that I'm working with. I'm pretty much enjoying it. It's a fine balance. It's still a mid-tier growing company, but it also has a great scale. It's a very good company that values its employees, and being part of the infrastructure team, I'm able to contribute right from get go. So I'll take a pause here. That's a lot of thing,
Yeah, yeah. No, no,
but
you're good.
it was a good journey.
I think very interesting parts. You have like life at one point managing two babies, one as your startup, one as your own personal life, and then your
Yeah, that's
life
it.
moving in sine waves, like going from smaller companies to big companies, and then smaller companies, and then big companies, and like that. So it's amazing journey. So I think the lot of the things you did was because of the strong foundation you had as a senior engineer or a senior software or staff engineer, whatever the levels were, right? I know the levels are blurred across the companies, but so there is a very interesting journey of every engineer who grows from senior to staff. So, what was your journey like, and how do you do it differently if you have to start it today?
Yeah. So as I said, in the initial few years at Amazon, I had the organic growth and I got my promotions. And after moving to Amazon US, I was working with AWS, which is a subsidiary of Amazon for web service. I think everyone knows about it. And there I had a steady growth, a little bit slower because the project that I was working on was an internal project. It was high impact, but it was getting deprioritized sometime because in order to favor the feature launches. But I was operating at the senior level at that time. Um, and I knew that getting next promotion is hard because of the circumstances. And when I checked that, okay, I'm already doing what a staff engineer does, and there is no staff level here. Going to principal will take a couple of years, um, and that's where I started interviewing outside and got offered as staff engineer. What I could have done differently, or in general, like what people should do when going to senior and staff, I would say one of the major thing is that once you're at a senior level, uh, you have established some level of trust.
Hmm.
You're senior, which means you're trusted. That's why you're a senior engineer. Now, going from senior to staff is little different because now you're transitioning into a more of a leadership role where you are still an individual contributor, but then you're a leader. And people often get confused between, what is leadership? I'm still an engineer, or I'm a like tech lead, or what exactly I am when I'm staff engineer. And I would say staff engineer by design is a very ambiguous role because if they just start putting guidelines to it, then that would be limiting in some sense. Um, so I would say if you are trying to grow to staff, or what I could have done differently is like starting scaling out myself or yourself, because as a leader, as I said, staff is a leadership role, and as a leader, when people think about leader, they think about like a boss image or something like that, or a manager or something. In my opinion, a leader is basically someone who is an enabler, right? There is a project, there is a thing to get done,
Hmm.
um, and they are the enablers that make that thing done. A complex situation or complex project, they make it so simpler, or they come up with a simpler solution by breaking it down and then scaling out with the help of other engineers or other people in the organization. So if you're targeting staff, then think about, like, take a step back and think, how can you develop your leadership skills? How can you enable others to grow in their career and enable uh, others to contribute, so that you're not the blocker, you're not the bottleneck, and you are kind of like becoming 10x. Like, uh, there is a saying called multiplier. So basically, you can become a force multiplier uh, by uh, by doing things which help others grow, and then you influence them without authority. and you help them sustain in this complex situation, especially in today's economy. It's very difficult
Yeah.
to sustain as an engineer. So I would say become a friend, solve problems, enables others' growth, and solve the most complex problems of your organizations. If you're doing these three things, like you're not thinking as you're not bringing your ego as a leader, rather than you're thinking about yourself as an enabler, you're solving the most complex problem that your company and organization needs to solve, and then you are enabling others, you're scaling yourself by enabling others and their supporting their growth, then you are at a right path. That's the part of a leadership. uh, Obviously you still have to code, you still have to design, you become remain an engineer at heart. But I think that's what I could have done differently. I did some of those things, but I think I was slow at scaling myself up, um, and potentially like navigating through the complex challenges. So I would have done that differently a little bit, but slow or whatever. I was staff in 8 years of my experience. I don't think that was slow, but
Okay.
uh,
That's okay.
yeah. But I would say this is a pretty good framework that you can use. But again, even if you do these things, depending upon which organization you are in, things could be different. And so, as I said, like navigate through those complexity, make it easier for others to work on that. I think that framework would help you to grow to staff in a decent time frame.
Yeah, I think I agree to what you say the most part, and the most important thing I have heard or I want to learn is being enabler, right? Because at one point, you'll be able to do certain things in your 8 to 10 hours of your work hours. So if you can enable more people around you, then I think that is when the 10x engineer or the high growth engineer comes into the picture, where you are delivering more impact than the average per person would be able to do that. So that's amazing, and I think that's a very special takeaway for the listeners as well as me. So yeah, cool. Going back to your HubSpot, you talked about managing infrastructure in HubSpot, right? So why don't you describe your roles in HubSpot, what exactly you do in a brief sense?
Sure. Um, I'm part of data infrastructure organization in HubSpot. So what does that mean is that we run, manage, and scale different databases for the whole company. And so HubSpot is a CRM company, and so there are
Yeah.
multiple different teams. They use like HBase, MySQL, Elasticsearch, and all those different data technologies. And so my organization helps manage those databases, scale them, and provide tooling, self-service tooling for product teams so that they can focus on their uh, product implementation without worrying too much about the intricacies of those data software databases and the related software upgrades. Specifically, right now, I'm part of the MySQL slash Vitus organization, like the sub team, the usability aspect of it, and how we can make it easier for teams to like use different features of MySQL, including like how can you run migrations, how can you scale this up and understand the performance better. And we also are using Gen AI tooling to solve some of the support load that we have. So operationally, we're solving things using Gen AI. So that's where I am part of it, and I'm supporting different initiatives there.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I read Vitus or Vitus, whatever you call it. I think it's one of the by default sharding of MySQL thing, right? Like it provides out of the box sharding for MySQL, and it provides a pretty good job at it. And I think Google, as part of YouTube, uses that. I don't know, but yeah, I have read some of the things about it. But you said pretty interesting thing. But do you use somehow the managed infrastructure, or do you manage them by your own, like the databases that you talk about?
Yeah, we are managing our own. We are hosting it on our own infrastructure rather than using the managed version. I think before it predates me. Before I joined. I think the company has experimented with both. both the managed version as well as their own hosting and managing it. And I think the company found for all the right reasons uh, uh, to use the to self to use the self-managed infrastructure. That's how they can build all the related tooling and provide like the HubSpot style features to the
Oh,
teams.
that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, let's come back to the work life a little bit more. Uh, as a staff engineer, you said you have to do coding. You can't leave coding. You have to do designs, and apart from that, you have to enable. So you have been an excellent time management uh, person as of now. So why don't you tell about how do you manage your time, or is there any specific things you focus on or want to convey to the audience?
Sure. Yeah. Apart from just being a software engineer, a leader, I'm also a balanced human being at life, and that's like my newsletter. The headline of my newsletter is like become a leader in your life, a leader you always wanted to be, while also becoming a balanced being at your own life. Because we are all humans at first. We are like career just a part of life, and so I think, and especially after having kids, like time management becomes a whole lot of different challenge in my opinion. So I read through all those fancy productivity books, YouTube videos, and everything. Selling courses for productivity, and I think it all boils down to one thing. It's like you cannot do everything. You have to choose your own battles, and you have to do one thing good. If you solve one thing in a day, and that is like that is like your goal of the day, then you're all sorted, right? Why we get stressed out with time management or by not able to do stuff is because we set a lot of expectation for ourselves that, hey, in my to-do list, I will do like these 10 things in a day. And then the reality is that at the end of the day, you can do just one or two if you have to do it perfectly right. Um, Now, having said that, there would always be challenges when you plan for X thing, but then Y thing popped up, or you came to know, oh, this tax filing due date is today, and so leave all the crap outside. You have to file that today. That becomes your utmost priority. So I think do one thing in a day pretty well, and then scale that out to weekly, monthly, and yearly goals or levels, and say, hey, for this week, this is my target. Um, and then you scale that out to say 1 month. In this 1 month, if I've done like these 5 or 10 main things, that I'm happy with that. And similarly, you frame this task among goals, and you
Mhm.
align those to yearly goals. So I think that's how I do things. Apart from that, I wake up pretty early. My company is like HubSpot. My team operates at Eastern time zone, so I start early and I start off, my work
Okay.
with Eastern, and then I end my day pretty early, like around 3:30 p.m. or 4 p.m.
Okay.
And then I always keep one thing in a day to be physically fit. Now it could be a gym, it could be just taking walk,
Hmm.
and when I say walk, like brisk walk,
Right.
so that you can cover at least 10,000 steps. Or you can play badminton, or you can just go for jogging, you can go for swimming. So do one thing in a day that actually activates your muscles and gives you that hormone that keeps you happy. Because at the end of the day, if you're not doing something for your physical health, eventually that's a downside, like that's a downslide, and then you will not be able to do anything else. So that's one of the goal that I try to hit during my day.
Hmm.
And then I spend my evening with my family, with my kiddo. And at night I spend some time writing newsletter, sharing something. And I try to sleep at least 7 hours. But I would say it's a struggle, but I try my best to sleep 7 hours. So yeah, do one important thing, and then maybe small two to three things. Keep your time at work to 7 to 8 hours and be effective in that. Do one thing for your physical health, and then spend your time with your family. So you cover like all the areas of life each and every day. I think that's the key to a balanced life. you cannot do everything every day.
Cool. I think that's a pretty interesting part, and you covered a holistic approach to that. So, coming to your writing journey, you have been writing some pretty cool articles. Like, where do you get the inspiration from, or how do you decide what to write next? And how is your writing schedule? Like, do you maintain a list of like, okay, these are things I need to cover, or something like that?
Sure. Um, yeah, so how do I get the ideas? That's an interesting one because I spend some time just thinking about what would benefit to the audience, not just from career growth perspective, but also like touching 360-degree areas of the life. So,
Mm-hmm.
like for example, the recent article that I released is on like techies are getting stressed out. How can you get out of it? Now,
Yep.
that might not be like just career growth because sometimes it get little repetitive in terms of like, hey, career growth. Like, yeah, we all want to grow, but the goal of your life is not to just grow in one area. And so I try to cover all those different areas in my newsletter. And so as I read books, as I consume content, I see, I try to pick ideas from different sources, and I try to reflect on my own career, and I try to make a article on that could give some concrete action items to the audience so that they can also value from it. Uh, that's my standard way of doing it. But I also, I'm also a reader of many different books, and I listen to different audiobooks as well. So that's like my constant ongoing journey of learning. And so in order to share what I'm currently learning, I started another, like within my newsletter, I started releasing another edition every Sunday called Reflection Short. That's where in a very short, I share what I'm learning nowadays, or a book that I'm reading, or a podcast that I listen to. So that's where it become a feedback loop for myself as well. That hey, whatever I'm learning, I write it down, I share with everyone, and that gets solid in my mind. So the Sunday articles are purely my learnings. I'm applying my learnings there. But the main article, the midweek article, which I release on Wednesday or Thursdays, sometime I get off schedule, so I release on Thursday. Um, it's based on my experiences in conjunction with the different strategies that you can take to portray that. Like always start with the storyline because I think as a writer, it's most important skill that you can learn, and that will be effective when sharing with your audience is to share a story, like narrate a
Yeah.
story that they can relate to. Just listing down different points doesn't make you an authority on that. Like when you start sharing your own experiences, your own stories, or maybe you are telling story for someone else from your own perspective, people are able to relate to that. And I think that's how I structure my articles around. I think the second part you asked is the schedule. I would say I'm not very good at my schedule of how I write newsletters. Sometimes I give time in the morning, sometimes I give in the evening, mostly in the evening, I would say. But the idea of like what I'm gonna write, it's constantly hitting in my brain. Whenever I get some ideas or a next line that will make an impact and note it down. And then when I'm compiling everything, I bring those notes into my writing. Mostly because after 9-10 p.m. when my baby goes to sleep, that's where that's where I have the golden opportunity to spend like 1 or 2 hours. I try to time bound my writing for an article to say 3 to 4 hours. I'm trying to become more effective on that. I also created a custom GPT. Sorry, I created a custom GPT for myself to kind of like so that I can off shelf some of the logistics like adding emojis to it or fixing grammar stuff. English is not my native language, so I'm not very good at grammar and punctuation and everything. So I'm trying to use that. But all the ideas, all the tone, structure, language, storyline, everything is my own. Uh, but I use that to make it like publish ready. I've
Okay.
also shared that in one of my newsletter article as well.
Yeah, I think I went through one of your reflection sorts, and that was something I was always interested in because one of my friends, like a couple of years ago, he had a book review journal. So he was like writing which chapter of the book he was in just to learn it in public. he'll not care about the font, how good it looks. He'll just dump whatever he is reading, and he'll do it on a regular weekly basis. And that was so effective. And one of our seniors also told that if you don't feel like pushing anything to your blog, just write a full stop, so that you maintain that consistency of writing every day. And I think that's really interesting thing. I'm planning to do something similar uh, soon. So
Awesome.
that's the plan. Yeah, I
Awesome.
think.
Let me know how can I help you out.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
definitely. I'll
definitely
reach out to
interested.
you because I kind of had one basic question which probably I want you to answer is when I'm writing or when I'm starting to write, should I choose a specific niche or should I be more generic and have multiple things and figure out on the journey?
Yeah, it was equally hard question for me when I started. I started like 8 to 9 months ago when I started writing for it. And if you search online and say what is the best practice of writing a newsletter on, how should you get started, the first thing is, hey, you should choose your niche. And then they just don't talk about niche. Like you cannot say like my niche is software engineering because software engineering is so wide. Like these great writers like Jordan, Raviraj, Hemant writes it, Rakash, and everyone, and I think you interviewed most of them already. I would say that choosing a niche, like they are also writing somewhat generic about career growth, with a specific flavor of their own experiences. I think when we talk about niche could be very specific and very narrow. Like I
Okay.
saw some newsletter, it's only about like TDD, test driven development. Like
Yeah.
that I can say I can call a sub niche or niche kind of thing. However, I feel like if you can choose your niche, you can come up with it and you can constantly write on it. Awesome. Nothing beats that. But if that's becoming a hindrance to your writing and you're not getting started because of that, that's not good. Like just start it. It's okay to figure it out as part of the journey. It's okay to struggle a little bit because with struggles, as I shared my struggle in that newsletter, I was, I would say you're fortunate when you're seeing some struggles. Like through those struggles, you learn and you figure out stuff, and that's a part of the journey. So if you're not able to come up with a niche, it's totally fine. Start it up with what you think is valuable to your audience. So the key is not just the niche. The key is that you're providing value as part of each and every writing that you're writing. So if you're struggling on niche, I would say don't struggle. Maybe spend
Yeah.
some time and keep thinking about it, but just get started. You take the
Yeah.
first step, and then you'll figure it out on the way.
Yeah, I think that's the advice I'm looking for, and I'll start with something because figuring out niche is a pretty hard thing, and I don't know what I'm good at because the only thing I've been doing is as part of my job, right? So it's like very biased opinion of what I'm good at because this is what I do generally. So yeah, I think that's a good advice. Yeah, coming back to the podcast, I'll end up with the last question, so which is any final tips or recommendations you want to give to viewers or audiences following us?
Um, I would say I can speak on behalf of my own experiences on my own learnings and also what I share in my newsletter is like if you are a junior engineer, you want to grow, uh, then I think build trust. That's one of the important things that you must do and you must learn early in the career. Uh, because without trust, whatever you do, no matter how technically solid you are, you will struggle. Um, I give this famous example like if someone is actually coming to your door knocking with a very reasonable product, nowadays, if someone is coming to your house, you do not trust them. And your instinct is that, hey, this guy is making fool of me, and I just how can I say no to this guy and resume my day? However, when you go to a barber shop, they're putting a knife on your neck, literally.
Okay.
But you have a trust. But you have a trust, right? You have a trust factor. Uh, with that, like they are also stranger to you, but you are letting them do their job because you trust them. Um, So, and I've seen in my career that, especially when I was junior, I was trusted because I was very proactive in communication. Even if I'm not doing good, I was very vocally self-critical. Um, I keep all the stakeholders, aware of what I'm doing, how this is progressing. And so the trust building comes with proactive communication. So you can do that. But at the same time, I observed there were other engineers who were literally more tech savvy than me. But they
Hmm.
struggled a lot because they were not able to build that trust with the stakeholders, and eventually, in some cases, they were let go as well. So, if you're a junior engineer who's trying to grow, build trust and deliver stuff and communicate proactively. If you are a mid-level engineer or even a senior engineer trying to grow, I would say I would repeat what I recommended for senior and staff is like think how can you become 10x engineer. Now 10x engineer, I don't like that term. It's how can you measure? Like I do not put a number to something which you cannot measure, but 10x is a fancy word going out
Yeah.
in today's world. But I would say the essence there is that try to be a force multiplier. uh, think how can you scale yourself by enabling others,
Hmm.
solve the most complex challenging problem, and then enjoy, like have fun in the whole process. Don't get stressed out, don't get burnt out. I must say it's easier to say than to do it actually. But then that's where my newsletter article, in my articles, I share different tips and tricks to become a balanced guy there. uh, Focus on your goals, enjoy the journey, even if you're getting your promotion denied once or twice, it's totally fine. Like 5 years down the line, you won't even care about it. So focus on learning and delivering and enabling. I think if you keep on doing this thing consistently, you will get observed with your leaders, and you will grow eventually. Last but not the least, in your personal life, I always take holistic view. Once you're sorted in your career, you think that you're growing, you're getting promoted, everything is going good. It's not always fruits and flowers everywhere. It comes with its own trade-offs. You might have to cut time in your personal life. You might get stressed out. You might think that this is not worth it, or how can I just go and don't do anything, just my salary should come. So these kind of thoughts will come in, and I would say, like, try to put into perspective of what you have done till now.
Hmm.
While you are becoming ambitious for the next level, also be satisfied where you are currently, and try to have a feeling of gratitude toward Lord of where you have come and how you have been supported by different folks. I think that perspective will keep you not just successful in your life, it will also make you successful in your whole, like not just in your career, it will make you successful in your whole life, and you will become eventually happy. Like that's the goal. Like why are we doing the jobs? Why are you going through all the hustle? Because you want to be happy, and happiness is a state of mind. It's not a target you achieve and then you will become happy. So that's why I said enjoy the journey, be a part of it, and so that you could be happy on every single day. So that's
Cool.
my
Yeah,
two
that's
two
that's
three
amazing
cents.
advice and great analogy on the barber thing. So I think with that, we'll wrap up this podcast. And it was great chatting with you with awesome tips, tricks. I'll mention all of your handles in the description of the video and your newsletter, amazing newsletter as well, citing the recent the shorts thing that you're doing. It's amazing. So I'll mention that, and hopefully we'll connect again. So thank you so much for coming in, spending your important half an hour, 1 hour of your time, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And yeah, any day I can. I'm open to help you out in anything. So definitely,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you so much.